And hello, everyone. Welcome to Chivashan Gaming. I am Chivashan, and this is my first live stream here on Facebook. And it's still a new experience. I was trying to making sure sounds and video works behind the scenes there for a moment. So if you can't hear me or you see me talking and you hear nothing, please let me know. Things should be sounding okay as I learn this new platform. So again, welcome. I've live streamed before, doing video games and game reviews on Twitch for a while, but I stopped streaming almost now about a year ago, probably about 8 or 9 months ago. So it's been a long time since I've gone live. A little nervous, but I'm sure I'll get back into the swing of things. So I've decided to start trying to stream here on Facebook and giving myself more of a concentration just than instead of just doing video games, because this year I've really gotten back into my love of role playing, especially with the current world situation. Role playing online has blown up, and I've had an opportunity to come back to my roots and getting back into some good old Dungeons and Dragons, and other types of role playing. So, being that this is my first stream here, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My online name, I go by Chiva Sean. It's an old gamer tag of mine that I've come to love and come to be known by. And yeah, so I have been playing tabletop role playing games now for almost about 30 years. Right when I started around age 10 or 11, starting, of course, with good old Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition. Local friend of mine started to get the neighborhood kids together to play, and it was my first taste of role playing, and I immediately fell in love with it. Other than my friend liked to run very interesting campaigns, all of our characters were like superhuman. All of our stats were like well into their 20s, and he liked to run high level, powerful campaigns. When I first bought my first AD&D Second Edition Player's Handbook, I realized to myself, "Holy crap!" He was just ignoring all the rules, which is fine. The rule. You play the game as you want to play it, but he got me into the love of role playing. But then I got my first Dungeons and Dragons book, and I was hooked. And I started saving money, asking for books for Christmas, my birthdays, to expand my old school collection. And I ran a lot of D&D for some of my neighborhood friends for a very long time. I still remember the first campaign setting I ever purchased was Dark Sun, and it was more of a survival based game that broke a lot of the molded rules of Dungeons and Dragons, the way how like a lot of the races that were common, elves, halflings, dwarves, were almost warped in a way that they weren't the usual fantasy races that you were used to back then. So I kind of liked that change in dynamic. I quickly went from there. I played some Forgotten Realms. That was kind of a go-to. And then Ravenloft came out, and that became my all-time favorite setting back in the day. I loved the gothic horror. I loved that in Ravenloft you could have bits and pieces of all the different games in this horror setting. Dragonlance, Greyhawk. They even had a realm in there that was based out of Dark Sun that got pulled into Ravenloft. I think I already said Forgotten Realms. Even the parts of the Red Steel Savage Coast campaign was in there. So you could run any of your favorite campaigns and add that gothic horror type of flavor to it, and that became one of my favorites for a long time. Getting older, I actually moved away from Dungeons and Dragons, and we started playing other role-playing games. We got into the Palladium system for it wasn't too long, but we played a lot of Robotech. I really enjoyed the Rifts campaign from Palladium. Never did their fantasy, but the Palladium system was a little more complex. It took very long to create characters. All of their skills were percentage based, and you had a lot of skills that you could muster in those games. Though combat turned pretty simple. Loved playing old school Cyberpunk. Back then, I think it was like Cyberpunk 20 or 2027. Now they revamped it to Cyberpunk 2077, and of course we have the brand new game that just came out that I just started playing, and I have to say it pays some homage to the original writing in the storyline, which I enjoyed. Um, it's always great to see when they actually bring in old school content from the books. Then we got heavily, and I mean heavily, into the world of darkness: Vampire the Masquerade, Mage the Ascension, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Changeling the Dreaming. My personal favorite that came out at the end of the World of Darkness series, which was Demon the Fallen, and for years, me and my friends, we delved extremely heavily into the World of Darkness games. I think I ran Vampire the Dark Ages. I was doing the Transylvania Chronicles, which were 4 books each with 3 huge chapters that spanned hundreds of years, and then I threw my own stories in between the modules. And that was probably the longest campaign I've ran. I ran almost a good 2 years, and we still ended up not even finishing it before, just as probably most role players know, life eventually gets in the way, and sometimes you can't get together anymore, and you started getting older, jobs, people started getting girlfriends and developing families, and stuff started to kind of die out as we got older. This year, I decided I wanted to get back to my Dungeons and Dragons roots. A couple years ago, I dabbled in a little bit of 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons to kind of get back into it. But then this year, I really started getting back and learning the rules of 5e. Picked up a group with a bunch of friends, so we started playing. I actually started playing. I'm usually the type that's always the DM. Started playing with a group online, learning the 5e rules, and then I kind of switch off with another DM when he's taking a break. I'm starting to take over, and some of my old friends back in the day asked me to start running a group again. So now I'm back into really getting heavy into back into my D&D 5e roots, and it's been a lot of fun learning the new rules. It's been a lot of fun uh, uh, developing campaigns and uh, getting this moving. So that's a little bit about me, and my plans for this stream is to, in a way, have some deep discussion about role playing Dungeons and Dragons, and to give my thoughts, my experience to people who want to hear it, people want to ask questions about how I run games, my thoughts on games, and hopefully be more informational. I do eventually, in time, want to get into some live gameplay, get some community interaction within that gameplay, even do one shots with with viewers that want to that want to join the community, and then see where we go from there. So we're trying to see if we can get some traction. I labeled this stream my session 0, because this is where we set the parameters of in a role-playing game, these are the parameters of the game. So I'm kind of here setting the parameters of what to expect in these streams. So if you have any questions, if you want advice, please comment and we can go into it.